The world spun like shattered glass. Smoke curled from the torn metal around him, every breath tasting of burnt fuel and damp earth. The jungle screamed. A wall of sound alive with insects and unseen eyes. He tried to move, but pain anchored him to the mud. His mind reeled. The last thing he remembered was lightning splitting the sky before the rotor died. Then silence. Now, wreckage. How far had he fallen? He dragged himself out, gasping, realizing there was no radio, no path, no sign of life, until a whisper rose from the trees. Not wind. Voices, rhythmic, steady, human. He froze. Someone was out there, watching. But who lived this deep, where no map dared reach? And why did the jungle suddenly go quiet when he looked their way? He moved through the jungle like an intruder in another world, the air thick enough to drink. Every leaf brushed his skin with warning. The storm that had carried him down was gone, but its ghost lingered in the thunder that rolled far above. His camera was gone, his bag soaked, his map shredded to pulp. Yet he felt he wasn't alone. Somewhere beyond the ferns, whispers drifted, a language unfamiliar, musical and sharp. He followed without meaning to, drawn by curiosity stronger than fear. The vines parted, revealing markings on the trees, symbols carved deep, glowing faintly with sap. They weren't random. Someone had been here, long before him. Or maybe they had never left. Something snapped behind him. He spun, heart hammering. The forest was empty, but the silence had changed. He backed toward a tree, pressing a hand against the carving, and felt it pulse beneath his skin. It wasn't stone. It was alive, bleeding sap that shimmered like fireflies. Panic rushed in. He turned to run, but a dart sliced the air and struck the tree beside his face. Another followed, then a third. The carvings lit up brighter, as if reacting to the threat. He fell into the undergrowth, breath shallow, waiting. Then, through the veil of vines, a dozen eyes stared back at him, painted faces, silent, waiting. They surrounded him without a sound. Every instinct screamed to run, yet he couldn't move. The one with amber eyes stepped forward, spear steady, gaze unblinking. She spoke in a language that carried rhythm like wind through trees. He raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. But the tribe didn't flinch. They moved closer, circling him like hunters around prey. Someone muttered a word that echoed through the clearing, the tone heavy with dread. The woman's expression shifted from fury to fear. She touched her chest, then pointed toward him. Whatever she said next made them all step back at once. The tribe led him through the jungle, torches flickering in the rain. The rhythm of their steps was ritualistic, almost mournful. He stumbled over roots, bound by vines, his mind racing. Where were they taking him? The jungle thickened until the light disappeared. Then the path opened into a vast clearing, and there it was. An entire village carved into the heart of the earth, huts woven from bone and bark, fires glowing beneath the rain. The people stared as he entered, whispering one word over and over, a word that made even the thunder pause. He didn't understand it, but he could feel what it meant. To them, he wasn't just lost. He was the beginning of something they feared would end them. They brought him to the center of the village, beneath a towering stone idol carved like a human figure reaching for the sky. Rain dripped from its hands like tears. The people gathered in a circle, chanting words that rose and fell with the thunder. He tried to speak, but his voice was swallowed by their rhythm. The elder stepped forward, eyes clouded yet sharp with judgment. The chant stopped. Silence fell heavy as the jungle itself seemed to lean closer. The elder spoke a single phrase, and the crowd gasped. Then the woman with amber eyes stepped out again, her face unreadable. She placed her hand over his heart as if feeling for proof of life. He didn't know what they were saying, but the meaning was clear. They believed he wasn't human. As the tribe argued, he caught fragments of their language, tones of warning, disbelief, awe. The woman kept glancing at him, torn between fear and curiosity. He saw something familiar in her eyes. Doubt. The elder pointed toward the jungle canopy, muttering about the sky tear and the returner. He realized their prophecy wasn't just myth. They believed the world ended long ago, and that they alone had survived. His crash, the fire in the sky, had shattered their illusion. Now, he was proof of something impossible. But proof is dangerous when belief is all people have left. Night fell like a curtain of smoke. They locked him inside a woven cage near the fire pit, guarded by 2 warriors with painted faces. Beyond the flames, the tribe sang low and haunting songs. He watched them through the gaps. Mothers, children, men sharpening spears under moonlight. This wasn't madness. It was order, belief, purpose. He envied it, but then he saw her, the woman, watching him from the shadows, holding something small in her hands. When the guards turned away, she stepped closer and whispered one word in broken English. It was enough to make his blood run cold. She said, "Others." The compass changed everything. He recognized it instantly, the same model used by explorers decades ago. She motioned for silence and slipped away into the darkness. The next morning, when the tribe gathered for a ritual, he spotted her again, this time at the edge of the crowd, signaling him to watch. The elder raised a wooden tablet carved with symbols. They chanted a name. It wasn't his. It was another outsider's name. Someone had been here before. The jungle wasn't just their home. It was their prison, and someone had made sure they'd never leave. That night, she returned. This time she carried food, water, and something wrapped in leaves. When she placed it before him, he unwrapped it slowly. A weathered, leather-bound journal. Inside, the pages were written in English, old and faded but legible. The name on the first page stopped his breath. Dr. Helen Graves, the anthropologist who vanished 20 years ago. He looked up at the woman, and she nodded, fear in her eyes. The tribe's truth had been recorded long ago, and buried deeper than the jungle roots themselves. He turned the fragile pages carefully, each one trembling in his dirty hands. The journal told of an expedition gone wrong, a team searching for an uncontacted tribe, funded by a company that wanted to mine deep beneath the rainforest. But they never returned. The last entry was a warning. The tribe must never learn they were hidden. They must never know the world beyond the canopy. His heart pounded. Hidden? By who? And why? He looked up at the jungle beyond the cage, realizing the truth wasn't buried in myth, but in design. The tribe hadn't forgotten the world. The world had erased them. At dawn, the woman returned, whispering for him to stay quiet. She unlocked the cage with a carved bone key and motioned for him to follow. They moved through the village unseen, slipping into the trees as mist rose like ghosts. She led him to a waterfall where the sound drowned their words. Beneath the roar, she pointed to a cave hidden behind the curtain of water. Inside, torches burned. Too new, too uniform. He stepped closer, his boots sinking into metal instead of stone. The sound echoed wrong. The floor was hollow. The cave wasn't natural. As he brushed dirt from the wall, a metallic surface shone through, panels, rivets, old wiring. It wasn't a cave at all. It was a sealed bunker, overgrown by time. On one side, faded letters spelled out a name. Graves Project. His pulse raced. Dr. Helen Graves hadn't just studied the tribe. She'd built the barrier that kept them isolated. Generations had lived believing the jungle was endless while a metal wall hid the truth. But how far did it stretch? And why was it still powered, humming faintly beneath his touch? They followed the tunnel deeper, each step echoing into the dark. Old equipment lay scattered: oxygen tanks, broken helmets, rotted crates labeled with warning signs. At the end of the corridor stood a reinforced door covered in roots. She hesitated, fear flashing in her eyes. He pressed his ear to the metal and heard a low, mechanical hum. Power. After all these years, something was still alive inside. He turned the wheel slowly, and the door groaned open. Light flooded the corridor. White, artificial, blinding. The woman gasped, stumbling back. For her, it was the first light she'd ever seen, not born from fire. The chamber beyond was like stepping into another lifetime. Computers covered in dust, monitors flickering weakly, and bones lying among metal chairs. She walked slowly, reaching out to touch the strange machines, her reflection trembling on the screens. He found more journals, maps, and video logs, all showing the same faces, all ending abruptly. The last recording showed Dr. Graves herself, whispering through static. The tribe must never know. The world is gone to them, and that's mercy. The power cut mid-sentence. He looked at the woman beside him, eyes wide, trembling. She finally asked, voice shaking, "What is world?" The truth hung heavy between them. He explained in broken words, pointing to the screens, to the maps, showing how their jungle was only a fragment of a vast world, one that had chosen to forget them. She listened, trembling, her faith collapsing with every image. The walls hummed louder, lights flickering as if waking from a long sleep. Somewhere in the machinery, something began to move, gears grinding after decades of silence. The air changed. It felt alive again, but wrong. She whispered that the tribe had always believed the jungle would die if they left it. Now, as the hum deepened into a low vibration beneath their feet, he realized that belief might not be superstition at all. It might be a warning. They ran back through the tunnels, the air shaking with metallic echoes. When they reached the waterfall, dawn had broken, but the sky was wrong. The mist was tinted orange, as if the sun had burned too close. Birds screamed overhead, scattering into chaos. At the edge of the village, people gathered, pointing toward the rising light. It wasn't the sun, it was fire. The old machines beneath the jungle stirring to life after decades of stillness. The tribe fell to their knees, praying. The chief looked at Ethan with horror, shouting words that cracked through the air like thunder. The prophecy had come true. The outsider had torn the sky. The ground trembled. Beneath the idol, fissures opened, spilling steam that reeked of metal and oil. He shouted for them to move, but no one listened. The chief raised his arms toward the burning sky, crying out that the end had begun. The woman tried to stop him, shouting that it wasn't the gods, it was the machines, the ones their ancestors had buried. But her words turned the crowd against her. Spears lifted, accusations flew. She was the betrayer, and he was the bringer of ruin. In that moment, he understood. The truth wouldn't save them. It would destroy them. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the jungle as the villagers closed in. Spears flew past them, thudding into trees. They stumbled through mud, branches tearing their skin. The roaring of machinery behind them grew louder, a mechanical heartbeat rising from the earth. When they reached the cave again, the light from within had changed, pulsing red like a living thing. She hesitated, terrified, but he knew they had no choice. Whatever was waking down there, it was part of the same system that once sealed the tribe in. And now, it was opening. Inside the bunker, alarms wailed, lights flickering in sequence. The monitors came alive, displaying maps, coordinates, and one repeating word. Containment breach. He realized the jungle wasn't just hiding the tribe. It was containing something buried beneath. She backed away, clutching her spear, shaking her head. "The jungle dies if we leave," she whispered again. Not as myth, but as truth. He looked up at the ceiling as the metal groaned and dust rained down. The world outside wasn't waiting for them. It was warning them to stay inside. The bunker trembled like a living heart. Every alarm screamed, every wire hissed with energy. He wiped grime from the nearest console, its old screen flickering with words and coordinates that made no sense. A buried structure stretched beneath the village. Miles of tunnels, sealed chambers, something labeled Subject, Genesis. The air turned hot, metallic. She covered her ears as the hum became deafening. The walls began to glow faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the jungle itself. He suddenly understood. The jungle wasn't natural. It was engineered. Every vine, every leaf, every bird was part of a system designed to keep the world above from knowing what slept below. He flipped through the journal again, desperate for answers. The last page of Dr. Graves' writing was smudged but legible. Genesis wasn't life. It was containment. Beneath it, a date and the coordinates of their location. He looked at her, realizing her ancestors were never meant to be prisoners. They were guardians. Their belief had been shaped to keep them from unlocking the vault beneath. The machine's hum deepened, the air burning with static. She asked him what would happen if the machine stopped. He didn't answer, because deep down he already knew. The jungle would die, and everything beyond it would awaken. Outside, chaos tore through the village. The ground split open, swallowing huts and fires. Screams echoed into the smoke-choked air. The chief stumbled toward the idol, shouting prayers, trying to calm the trembling earth. But the idol itself began to crack, glowing from within. She wanted to go back, to help them. But he pulled her away. "If we stop the machine," he said, "we stop this." She stared back at the village, the only world she had ever known, burning under a false dawn. Then she nodded. Together, they ran toward the core. The jungle howled around them, no longer hiding what it was. The core chamber was a cathedral of metal and roots, its heart pulsing with a sphere of light suspended in the air. Wires fed into it like veins, and through its surface, shapes moved, silhouettes like human figures drifting within. He stepped closer, eyes reflecting the glow, and saw their faces, the missing explorers, frozen in perfect preservation. Dr. Graves' voice echoed faintly through the speakers. Containment active. Organic link stable. He turned to her, voice breaking. They used life to power it. Your people were part of the machine. The hum reached a breaking pitch. Alarms flared again, screaming of overload. He shouted that they had to shut it down. But she shook her head. The tribe's faith, their entire existence, was tied to this place. If they stopped it, everything might end. Yet if they didn't, the jungle would collapse, and the world would learn the truth. He placed his hand on the console. She placed hers over his. Together, they pulled the lever. The light erupted outward, blinding white, swallowing the chamber whole. For a heartbeat, there was silence. And then the jungle began to breathe again. When the blinding light faded, the jungle was silent. The air was thick, humid, but different. Cleaner, sharper, as if the forest itself had exhaled. The village lay in eerie calm. Fires had extinguished. Huts, cracked but intact. Villagers peeked from behind trees, cautious, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. He looked at Nira, her amber eyes searching his. Their hands still touched. And in that moment they understood. The jungle had survived, but it had changed. Everything alive seemed to hum faintly, as if acknowledging the shift. The world outside had not come in, but the world inside had begun to open. The villagers approached slowly, guided by the chief. He spoke first, voice trembling but firm, acknowledging that their world had shifted. The whispers of the jungle mingled with his words, like an orchestra of life. Nira stepped forward, speaking in her language, bridging old belief with new truth. She explained what had happened: the machines, the containment, the outsiders that had touched their lives. Some villagers shook with disbelief, others bowed in gratitude. He realized the prophecy hadn't been a curse, it had been a warning. And they were still alive to heed it. They walked deeper into the jungle together. Broken huts gave way to untouched groves, and the air was alive with color and sound. Birds, insects, and distant waterfalls. He noticed how the villagers moved differently now, curious rather than fearful, exploring paths they had never dared before. She showed him markings on trees he hadn't seen before, old symbols, altered slightly, as if signaling a new beginning. It struck him. This was more than survival. The tribe was learning to live in both worlds, the one they had always known, and the one they had just discovered. As they reached the edge of the forest, a river appeared, wide, alive, and shimmering in the morning light. Beyond it, the faint glimmer of structures hinted at the world outside, the one the tribe had never seen. Nira hesitated, looking back at her people, then at Ethan. He smiled faintly, understanding her fear and hope. The choice was theirs. Stay in the sanctuary of the jungle or step into the unknown. For the first time, the prophecy felt like a challenge rather than a threat. The jungle had survived. Now, so could they, in both worlds. He turned to Nira one last time. No words were needed. Together, they stepped forward, leading the tribe toward the unknown, toward a world that had always existed but had been kept away. The jungle behind them seemed to breathe, alive and forgiving, carrying whispers of the past while welcoming the future. For the first time, they weren't trapped by belief or machinery. They were free, not just to survive, but to explore, to learn, to rewrite the story of the tribe and of themselves. And somewhere deep beneath the roots, the hum of the old machines faded into silence. The jungle ended, but the world beyond began in fragments of steel, concrete, and roads he'd only seen on maps. The tribe froze at the edge, awe and fear etched into every face. Ethan stepped forward, hands still in Nira's, and urged them onward. Each step across the threshold felt monumental, a bridge between the old world and the new. The river behind them reflected the rising sun, casting golden light on the first steps of a journey no one had imagined. The past was behind them, but every shadow whispered of what they had left buried, and what could awaken if the world learned their secret. They reached the outskirts of a small town, abandoned, overgrown, and strangely quiet. It was a ghost of civilization, a reminder that the world they were entering was not untouched. He could see broken signs, rusted vehicles, and shadows shifting in windows. She clutched his hand tighter, whispering questions he couldn't answer. Yet he knew they had no choice. Their survival depended on understanding this new land, learning its rules, and guiding their people safely into it. The tribe, once hidden, was now exposed to everything they had feared, and everything they had hoped for. In the town square, he found remnants of maps, books, and signs of people who had once lived here. The tribe gathered, touching objects with reverence, curiosity, and confusion. Nira knelt beside a cracked textbook, tracing letters with her fingers, trying to understand. Ethan realized their journey wasn't over. Survival was no longer enough. They had to teach, explore, and rebuild, bridging knowledge with tradition. The prophecy had warned of destruction, but it had also shown the way forward. Now it was their story to write. He and Nira climbed a hill overlooking the town. Below, their people spread slowly, discovering, learning, and adapting. She rested her head against his shoulder, whispering that she had never imagined the world beyond the jungle, that it was beautiful and terrifying. He held her close, feeling the weight of responsibility. They were pioneers, caretakers of a secret world no longer hidden. The hum of the old machines had faded, but the lessons remained: trust, courage, and the delicate balance between belief and reality. As the sun climbed higher, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The jungle behind them remained alive, secretive and protective, a reminder that the world held mysteries even now. The tribe had survived centuries in isolation, and now they had a choice: cling to old myths or embrace the future. Nira squeezed his hand, eyes glowing with determination. Together, they stepped forward, leading their people into the unknown. The jungle watched, silent and forgiving, as the first steps of a new chapter echoed across both worlds.